when you are closer to poverty, your ability to make logical decisions is deteriorated. I realized that I actually felt like I'd lost a little bit of meaning and fulfillment because trading numbers, it's not really fulfilling. It's not very inspiring. You don't feel very useful. The fact that it wasn't a deliberate career, and I was doing it because I truly wanted people to get the truth, that will outperform and outlast and, out-stamina anyone who's trying to copy me or anyone who's trying to jump on a quick buck, because I wake up every morning wanting to share this stuff.
No Bullshit Talks is a podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. There's too much bullshit out there, especially when it comes to business. This podcast aims to highlight what's true and what's not in the world of entrepreneurship, bringing you honest and raw conversations about the roller coaster that is entrepreneurship. Each week, my guest will be a high-performing entrepreneur sharing the ups and downs of their journey and helping you prepare for the road ahead, while providing you with actionable insights and absolute gems of knowledge. Stay tuned as I introduce this week's guest. Jason Graystone is an award-winning YouTuber with one of the most successful YouTube channels on trading in the world. His Trading for Beginners video has over 4 million views on YouTube, meaning Jason is educating literally millions of people all over the world about how to make money. Jason's aim is to educate people in an ethical and sustainable way, helping you stay safe online and protect their wealth. I present to you this week's guest, Jason Graystone. So welcome, Jason, to No Bullshit Talk.
My kind of podcast. Thanks for having me on. Great name.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of bullshit out there, as you know.
Yeah.
And people should talk about it. And this is a podcast where let's talk about what is bullshit, what's not, and, be really honest about the industry. And that's how I've always been doing business, and I think that's the right way to do business, personally.
Yeah, and social media has just provided this stage for anyone with a little bit of confidence to really get bullshit across, right?
Yeah.
Spread the wrong information, and that's what we've seen.
And it's terrifying, actually, how much out there is just a load of crap. And there's all these people who are trying to run a business and thinking it's super easy, or try these 5 simple things and skyrocket your income and all this stuff. And there's so much of that. And then they do it and they end up in so much trouble, and actually it's doing more harm than good. Absolutely.
And it's about not seeing the full picture, like you say. Some of it isn't BS, but some of it is just not the full picture. And I think that's not, I think we need to be giving people realistic expectations, because there's a rise in depression and anxiety, and it all stems from looking up to people and one side of a journey or one side of a result, and not seeing. We was talking about just before we got here, the battery overheating in a camera, right? So you don't see that sort of stuff going on, but no one's going to share that. No one's going to say, well, your battery might overheat. No, it's really, as soon as your battery overheats, you think, I'm a failure. Or things like that, people coming in the middle of your podcast.
I'm going to leave
That's
that
it.
in.
That's the shit we deal with on a daily basis.
But they tried to make everything look super shiny. And like you said, the battery overheating, I'm learning all these things, the amount of times I'm panicking, that the cameras are actually working. And
I know. And that never goes away.
Are you actually recording, guys? And yeah, I don't know who that is and why he was here, but he decided to just come in the middle of the podcast.
We've got so much trust in Sony right now.
But tell me a bit about what you do, Jason, because you do a few things, and how would you describe yourself as what you do?
Yeah, I don't like labeling myself, but I am an investor. I'm a trader. I'm an entrepreneur. So basically, I like making money to create a lifestyle type business, and I've been able to do that through investing and angel investing and creating leverage income streams in the real way that you can create leverage income streams,
which I feel like people call like a portfolio kind of career, or these days they like to label stuff, people do.
Absolutely.
And that's more like what it is, right?
Yeah, Yeah. So I would, if I was to summarize, I would say I'm an investor because I invest in businesses or, money making assets.
Okay, well, I definitely want to talk to you about your industry because you said trading, and I feel like that has got to be one of the industries filled with the most bullshit.
Definitely. That's why I got into it on social.
And what you do videos about helping people trade. That has also got to be one of the ones filled with the most bullshit. And I feel like that's been going on since I can remember. That's a lot of time, a lot of years have been going on, and it's still going on.
Yeah.
Like, what made you go into an industry where people immediately think you're a con artist when you already start?
That exact thing, right? So, yeah, back in the day when I just spent about 18 months, a year and a half, trading very, very successfully. I moved my family into this massive house. We had a pool and, we was living a life of Riley, right? And I had really cracked it. And that was off the back of 3 years of really struggling to make that work. I wasn't broke, and I'd done other things, and I'd have other investments and other businesses and stuff. Trading was the final piece of the puzzle that I wanted to nail, because that was the tipping point that would allow me to just replace every portion of my active income, so I didn't have to work, right? So I didn't have to go and do other jobs. So 3 years, struggle, and then bang, done it. A year and a half, I'm sitting in my house, living the life of Riley, and I'm putting on a bit of weight, and like getting a little bit complacent. And I realized that I actually felt like I'd lost a little bit of meaning and fulfillment because trading numbers, it's not really fulfilling. It's not very inspiring, and you don't feel very useful. And on top of that, my extended family are like, has he got a gambling habit? You really do get looked at and labelled. It's a really bizarre. Anyway, after kind of becoming successful at it, I was looking around and I thought there is so much crap, so much misinformation. It wasn't anything near as what it is now, but it was still bad then. And I thought, do you know what? I could just let people watch me trade my live account in my house. It would give me some company every morning. I would feel like I'm, feeling useful, and it would just dispel all those myths. And because I had no incentive to make money from teaching people, I could really give this authentic kind of real, here's my account. There's nothing bad you can say after watching this, because this is me in my pants, eating my cookies and tea in the morning or whatever. And it's real as it gets. So I did that. I created this little webinar thing. It was free. Everyone could come and watch me. And it just grew this amazing community of people that felt like they'd had a breath of fresh air. It was like, this is so needed. This is what I've been looking for. And we built this community until the point where I had to pay out of pocket to kind of upgrade the space on this thing. And I was like, look, you're all going to have to start chipping in, and I'll keep this thing going. And that's what happened. And then it just grew and grew and grew. But my goal for talking on social media was to always just the truth, share everything that's real. And, you go back and look at all my content from back in 2014, like 10 years ago, and it will be me saying the truth. There'll be no shiny object. There'll be no get rich quick, nothing. It's just, and that has given me the most fulfilling life.
It's quite incredible, because I think that when you hear trading and definitely hear about people who teach trading, you definitely think there's some sort of scam going on. Yeah. The fact that you're showing it live as you're doing it, you're not hiding anything. And I think for loads of people, I think half the people probably tuned in just to see what's going on, like whether it is a scam or what's going on. And then half of the people will be like, okay, how do I do this as well? And it's intriguing more than anything, because no one else is being that transparent, which is huge. So I totally get why people tuned in. I think you mentioned something really interesting, is that you said gambling. Mm-hmm. Now, I have always said that I think trading is a lot like gambling. Except you're gambling with other people's money a lot of the time as well when you're an actual trader. And it's funny because I recently started playing poker, and loads of people are going to me, oh, that's gambling, like, isn't it a lot about bluffing? And I was like, no, it's a strategy game. And I think there's more risk in being a trader than there is in poker. At least you've got a certain amount of variables, and you know a certain amount of things are coming up. You've got the market. You've got a lot of other things that are totally out of your control.
Yeah.
And I just find it remarkable about people's impression of trading as this like really powerful career, Wolf of Wall Street and all this stuff is glamorized on TV versus the degenerate poker gambler sort of lifestyle. Well, actually, there's not that much difference to it, in my opinion, in terms of how you kind of go about things. I just find it interesting you said the word gambling and what your family thought.
It's great. That is a great... I was speaking about this earlier. First of all, I think, because I went into poker first. So basically, I saw it as a high speculation endeavor to give me some higher returns. That's what I was looking at. But how I approached that would decipher whether I was a gambler or not. I could approach it as a professional, or I could approach it as a gambler. When I'm going to Vegas next week, and it's funny because you watch everyone in the casino, and they're all having a laugh on the one-armed bandits, and there's no consistency. But when you look at the tournament table, it's the same people every night. Every night they're at the semi-finals, right? So why are they at the semi-final every night? There's a plan.
How can it be gambling if it's the same people winning every single time?
It's the approach. So gambling is your decision to approach it as a gambler.
Right.
Or you can approach it as a business person with a strategy and a game plan and know when enough's enough and so on and so on. So I do think poker's harder though, because yes, there's the variables of the market, but with poker, you have to make a decision every 60 seconds, whereas trading, you don't, so you can kind of tailor it to your personality a little bit more, whereas poker, it's like you have to, play every 60 seconds. So I think that's harder on a side note. And I've got a friend called Casper Berry who went to Vegas as a professional, and he went out there for a month or so to make some money poker playing, and he stayed there for 3 years and made a living out of it. And he consulted on Casino Royale.
Yeah, nice.
And he does TED Talks and all the rest of it on his risk. So yeah, he's a great example of that. It's like how you approach it is whether or not it's gambling.
Absolutely. And I totally have that mindset with my approach to poker, because I don't intend to be a professional, or I feel like if I become a professional, I think it will affect my decision-making skills, how I approach it. I feel like that would be, if you rely on that money, as I think it would totally change how I...
That's another good point.
And whereas I love the strategy of it, I love how the skills it taught me for entrepreneurship, because I definitely think there's a parallel there. And so I've been finding it fascinating, and it's also interesting other people's perception though of the game, because they only see again what media perceives of it. And you're off to Vegas next. Are you doing the World Series?
No, I'm there for a podcast. Yeah. I'm going out there for a podcast, but we're running an event at the end of June, and it's a trading education event, but we're going to be doing it heavily around a gambling awareness. So no BS.
Totally like appropriate for this conversation as well. I love that. So I want to hear more about that, because like I said, I feel like I wouldn't trust most people who are going to say, "Oh, I can help you trade." Yeah. You've seen the bots on Instagram.
Most of them have got my picture.
I guess it's flattering at the same time, but it's also just must be so difficult for your reputation though as well, because like if those scammers are there like with the bots like trying to scam people from it using your face, then how are you going to do it with your actual with you doing it validly? Like it's really hard. Like I feel like you might post and suddenly all these people go, so-and-so helped me trade, I won loads of money or whatever, and it's just all fake.
Yeah.
How have you found like building your career in this industry? Because it must be a consistent uphill battle.
Yeah. I think the fact that it wasn't a deliberate career and I was doing it because I truly wanted people to get the truth, that will outperform and outlast and out stamina anyone who's trying to copy me or anyone who's trying to jump on a quick buck, because I wake up every morning wanting to share this stuff, whereas they're doing it, they're fighting against, as I say, imitation is suicide, right? It's because they're trying to pretend they're someone else. That's going to get very tiring. The guilt's going to eat away at them eventually. They're not going to be one step ahead of me ever. They're always going to be behind me because they're always secondhand information, right? So I think I do appreciate that there are people like that, and it's been very tiring over the years. But for me, it doesn't feel like work still. It's like I'm just still going to talk about what I'm inspired to talk about, and I'm still going to help people. And anyone who does end up getting scammed by those people, try and just see it as a lesson in the long run. Try and see it as, yes, you might have lost £500 being scammed, but how much has that earned you in the long run? And what has that taught you? That's really the only positive that I can spin on.
It's hard to feel like that, though, at the time when you're being scammed.
Of course.
I mean, like, there is always a positive lesson to be learned, but you feel like crap at the time when that happens, and it's not so easy to be like, okay, I can learn this.
But you are humble. I mean, you shouldn't be thinking about trading if you're making silly decisions like that, in my opinion.
That's a good point.
You think about going to make money in a more sustainable way, until you've got some money, and then go into trading when whatever you're trading doesn't matter.
But you mentioned, like, obviously, okay, so building a business in a more sustainable way or doing some income, but I think what sort of people go into trading? Because I feel like those who turn to trading, I guess, are a mixture of different people. Some people are really ambitious already, like, they are already very smart, got a career, but actually want to do stuff on the side. And then there's others who think it's a get-rich-quick scheme, right? And what other people have you sort of found?
Yeah, there's people that go into trading. There's people that tend to do well in trading. And from working with quite a lot of traders now, we've found that people go into it either to make a lot of money quickly, which is kind of true. You can make a lot of money, but you can lose a lot of money. Just like poker, it's the same thing. Or they go into it because they want to take control of their own financial future, so they don't want to rely on other people managing their money, which is great. And the ones that usually do well are process-oriented thinkers. So a lot of military, a lot of IT engineers, people like that who just take orders and know that if you follow a process, you get an inevitable outcome. And it's like a plan-driven, process-oriented thinker who does well, because it's not so much focused on the £1 million account.
Yeah.
It's just, if I just get 2% per week, and then 2% per week, and then, that's 2% of a million account or 2% of a 10 million account, it doesn't matter. It's just, if I just do that, it will work. And those people tend to really do well. They're the ones that do the best.
I love that, because I've been talking a lot about that recently, just in general with business and mindset. And, I think that process-oriented approaches are way more sustainable than results-oriented approaches. And I think that a lot of social media content is so focused on the results. It's like, do this and you'll get X. It's like, put in X and you'll get Y. And it's so, and if you don't get it, you're set up for failure, and well, you just feel depressed, and it's not great. And the same as in poker, right? I'm very process oriented when learning poker, because if you go in there results oriented, you get lucky, you think you're good. And I think that's the problem with a lot of gamblers, right? They do one hand, they'll play it badly, they get lucky, but I won that, so I'm going to play like that every time. That's not how it works. And
winning is just as bad as losing on the first. Like,
right.
Get us luck.
Probably worse, because they keep playing and they end up losing more.
They get so cocky, you can't tell them that they're wrong.
Yeah.
And they believe that they...
Exactly. And that's because they're thinking about the results. Whereas if you do the process, it might suck if you do get unlucky or the variance goes not in your favour. But if you're doing the right thing over time, you will end up with the better results over time. And that's the problem. It's like, it is a long-term thing. And I think that people don't see the long-term thing. And you mentioned getting rich quick. Surely those are the people who go in, if they go into it thinking, I'm going to make money really quickly, surely they're more likely to fail, because if you go in there with that mindset, you're not going to do the right thing. You're going to try and find shortcuts, surely.
Yeah, there's so many like ironies in the whole approach to trading, really. Like there was a study done in India, in the southern, there was like 56 cities that they did this study in southern India, and they tested the farmer's IQ. And the farmer's IQ, when there was a drought and there was low trade and the market wasn't booming and they were kind of struggling for survival, their IQ dropped by up to 30 points. And then when the trade was good and everything was going well and swimmingly, it raised up to 30 points. And what they found was, when you are closer to poverty, your ability to make logical decisions is deteriorated. So when people want to learn to trade because they can't afford to pay their bills, that very approach is what's going to stop them from learning to trade, and it's flawed. And I have to deal with that on a daily basis, telling people. I tell more people not to trade than you should try it.
And that's exactly the reason why I just said earlier that I would never play poker professionally, because it just would affect your decision. And I always find that when I've watched like game shows in the past, and I think like back when I was a kid, I watched like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or something. The ones who've got the £1 million were the ones who are already rich.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I just answer this question, and they don't care. But everyone else is going, oh my God, if I lose that amount of money, and then all that fear and
say something stupid, or
and it affects your decision making, and it just shows you that if the more pressure you put yourself under, the less likely you are to make good decisions.
Yeah.
And so I don't understand anyone who goes into something like trading or like poker with that sort of mindset who's like, I need to make money, because I just don't think you're going to make that much money.
Because it's how it's glamorized on the one-sided truth that you see online, eh?
So how do you tackle this? Because it is, and that's my whole premise of no bullshit talks and why I talk about no bullshit entrepreneurship, because I'm sick of the equivalent in my industry where it's like you're on the beach in Bali and you've got your laptop and everything's fine. You wake up whenever you want, you do a bit of yoga or you sip your matcha tea. That's what it's glamorized as. And you work your 4-hour week and you go do whatever you want and you just have passive income that comes into your business. That's just how easy business is. Yeah. And in my industry, I see this every day and I'm so tired of it. And so I'm trying to talk out about this and talk about what life is really like as an entrepreneur. And actually, it's a struggle. It's really hard, but it's also amazing. Otherwise, none of us would do it, right? Like, we all love it, but there are things that you need to do and you have to be prepared to put in the work. So how are you trying to fight this and put the real truth out there? What is the truth about trading?
Yeah, for me, it's been a real long game. I could have made a killing out of trading education because I could have just sold the dream. I would have got rich. There's a lot of people that have made a lot of money and you got millions of subscribers and all the rest of it just from selling the Lambos and all the rest of it, right? I didn't need the money. So I've played a much longer game. And in doing so, I've built a loyal following, no negative reviews, nothing. And that is, to me, is a much better way. Leading by example is a much more fulfilling way to live. And I can look my kids in the eye and they're proud of me and all of that stuff. That matters to me. And I don't think it does to a lot of these kind of... how do I approach it? I just try and educate people that there's two sides of everything. Like you mentioned business. Most people who start a business for a better lifestyle end up with a worse lifestyle than they would have if they just kept their job. That's the truth. And if you really want to go into it, the people that do struggle is the people that go into it because they look up to the entrepreneur. It's okay to not be an entrepreneur. It's okay to be in a job. As long as you can afford the things that inspire you to live a life that you want for the short time you're here, that's all that really matters. Yeah. That really is all that matters. So it's seeing both sides. When you think, I've just kind of shred quite a lot of weight and, I've got some good photos of me now. If I put that up online, people will think, oh, look, I'm not getting those results. I don't have a six-pack. I'm a failure. Actually, it's taken me like 2 years. It doesn't take 6 weeks and what they tell you online. And there's always another side. There's always downsides and drawbacks of any journey that you're going to go on. And I think the more you can see that from day one, the more grounded you are and the more sustainable your journey will be. So I just try and tell people that, try and see both sides, see the good in the bad and the bad in the good at every step.
Yeah, and I love that example you gave because I think the weight loss industry is another one of those ones which is full of that. Oh. And I've got another podcast which is like just an audio one that's just me basically rambling into the mic, called Sniffing Out the Bullshit for that exact thing. And I did one on overnight success because of that reason, that everyone sees all these overnight successes and they're like, I wish I could do that. Why can't I do that? And it talks about how people seem like they're overnight successes. Like Mr. Beast is a classic one, right? Everyone talks about him and how he's suddenly the biggest YouTube creator overnight. And I'm like, he basically 10 years but with no one liking his stuff. And that's why I think he totally deserves everything he's got, because who has that grit to go for 10 years and no one even watches a single video?
Yeah.
I hear people all the time like crying after 2 videos going, no one liked my posts, and they quit. So if you're doing it for 10 years, you deserve every fame and fortune that you're going to get from that, because most people don't have that willpower.
And it's the same thing, like same principle, where he's waking up wanting to do that. The time will come.
Yeah.
And if you're waking up looking at likes on your video, that's a massive problem.
Yeah.
You're not doing it because you want to do it. You're wanting to do it to please someone.
Yeah.
Which is a totally wrong way to go into anything.
Yeah.
And with the trading example, I think if you wake up and you're genuinely interested in it and you're fascinated by the markets and you love process-oriented trading systems and, you know, the numbers, that's great. You're going to do well eventually. It's just like anything. But if you're going into it thinking that, you know, guru online got rich and using a Lambo, I'm not yet. Yep, that's not the right way to go into it. You shouldn't even be thinking about him or her.
It's that whole intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation, right? So extrinsic's only going to last you a certain amount of time. It's the same with jobs, and they talk about employees and why they feel despondent in a job. If you're only motivated by the money, then you're not going to do a good job. But if you actually care about it and you have that intrinsic motivation to actually want to do it and do it well, then it's going to last a lot longer. And the same reason for this podcast, take for example, it doesn't make me money. It's not something that's a revenue driver. Maybe someday it will be, exactly. But I need to build up time with that. I need to show that I've got an audience. I need to then get brands to sponsor. That's a long time coming. I'm not even thinking about that now. I'm doing it because I love these conversations. I love creating content. I love having great conversations with other entrepreneurs and helping put that out there to help other people. Yeah. I think that for me, it doesn't matter how much time and energy and the mistakes and screw-ups that I make during the thing. It's all part of the learning process, and I love doing it. And I think that will then keep going. Whereas I know people who start podcasts thinking, I'm going to make money and get all these brand sponsorships, and they'll just give up after a few episodes.
You can't, when you do the approach you're doing, you can't not make money eventually. Because people come to you, they want to be part of what you're doing because you're inspiring, because you haven't got this desperation energy that a lot of people have. But when you mention the jobs, I think even that, there's such a tarnish on 9 to 5. Anyone with a job is feeling depressed because they're in a 9 to 5 when there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with it.
I don't know why entrepreneurship's glamorized so much for that reason. You were saying earlier, there's nothing wrong with those jobs. I was thinking, do you know how many times I go thinking,
I'll go back and get a job.
Why don't I just go get a job? And my partner says this to me all the time because he sees how stressed I can get over work. And he's like, you could just walk into any company and demand a job and with your experience. And I'm like, no, I can't. And he's like, you can. Think about it. You've got all these years of experience behind you. Go get a normal job. It'd just be so much easier. And I'm like, no, I love what I do. And it's like, if you're an entrepreneur, you can't go and do that. But part of me thinks, it is so much easier. I'm not ashamed to do it. There's no, and I'd get way more salary that's consistent, and a lot less stress. So I don't see any problem with that. I think it's great to have a job, and I don't know why there is this tarnish on it now.
No, and kids who do, or younger people who do try and be an entrepreneur, if they haven't got overnight results, then they're like, this is not for me, and then it's like I'm the problem. And it's just, I think we just need more education on what the journey's actually like, and it's very difficult because everyone's showing the good times. I just posted on Instagram a little scan of the Four Seasons foyer. I didn't take a scan of when I was on the toilet. It's just it's just the way it is, and I think it's important to raise awareness, which is why this podcast is so great.
Yeah, and that's what I tried to do. And to be fair, I need to post more stuff of the Four Seasons. I'm here all the time, but I never do it. But that's a good point, actually. Maybe I show too much of the bad stuff. I need to mix it up a little bit so that people will listen to me, because I feel like if they don't see the good stuff, then maybe they won't listen to me.
Yeah, I think you need both. It's good to have an inspiration of what you can have, but then show the contrast of what it takes to get there. And I think that's kind of what I've tried to do online.
I'm going to make sure I balance it out. But I do want to talk more about the trading then. So who is it? Like you said, the people who do well are more process oriented, which is a mindset thing. And I do think that you can shift your mindset. But who should go into trading? And what are some practical tips for those who do see it as a potential career? What should they do to prepare themselves for what it's going to take.
Yeah. So there's two brackets of people. There's like the 18 to 25-year-olds, those people who want to go into it, stay at home with your parents, have no dependents, and just put in all the hours into trading, not worried about money. And if you don't worry about the money, you're going to worry about the results, and those results you'll have money thrown at you. You'll be approached by a prop firm or a trading desk or Citibank or whoever. And I know Gary Richardson, who's very similar story from the East End, or went into Citibank, became their best trader, and then was out. Those type of people do well. And the other type of person is someone who really wants to generate another income stream, or do it full time, or take control of their financial future, whether that's manage their own money or their pension or whatever, but go in with it with a very process oriented view. It's for people who have a longer term plan. That's kind of, whether you're the younger bracket or the older bracket, you've still got to have this longer term plan, because with trading, you don't even know if you're going to have a profitable month. I still don't know. I don't know if this month will be profitable, but I know that over a year I'm usually profitable, and over 10 years I'm definitely always profitable. So it's about just going, if I stick to this plan over this period of time, I'll have a profit, and then I can divvy that profit up and kind of see what I can take from that over the next year. So it's a very long-term thing. And if that isn't you, or you're not in a position to do that, don't think about it, because it's going to take you 18 months minimum
to make any money.
To start even.
Well, that's what's thinking when you're saying it. You say like, oh, you might make a profitable year, but like, how much are we talking? Like, so, because again, the way that trading is put in the, in the media, it's millions, it's billions, that's what it is. Like, how much realistically, you can start trading with a few £100, right? And you can go small. What are we looking at in terms of like, practically, what should people be looking at doing? Like, how much, I guess, times whatever they need in terms of...
Great question.
Because I feel like this is practical. It's not just a number. It's got to be relatable to what you're already bringing in, presumably, and stuff. So
relatable to that, relatable to your lifestyle expenses, what life you actually want, but also your performance. And the best way to look at it, like, without thinking about any of that, is like, what is a good return for you? Like, you can go and put your money in a bank and get like 1% a year. Mm-hmm. You could go and put it into someone else's business, and maybe they'll give you 5% a year, 2% a year, I don't know, 3% a year, 10%. You could go and invest it into a startup business that you start yourself, and maybe you'll get 100%, 1,000% return on that, right? So who knows? With trading, it varies massively depending on your appetite for risk and how you swing the bat. Anything from 2% per month to 100% a year, we've seen, right, from our traders. So think about that, right? If you've got £200 and you, bearing in mind the amount of effort required to learn how to trade consistently, just think of poker, right? All of that effort to learn and then implement and consistently like generate enough returns to do 100% in a year, which is phenomenal, right? Doubling your money in a year. You've now got £400. So the question is that worth it to you?
Most of the time, it's probably not, unless you are that 18 to 25 and you've got all the time.
And you've got a bigger plan.
Yeah.
And then, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Because you've got a bigger plan. For some people, it would be worth it. For most people, it won't be worth it.
Unless it's a hobby and it's actually genuinely fun, like we talked about, like that's something that you don't mind doing. Like, yeah.
But then if you do find it fascinating, you do love it, and it is worth it for a long-term view, that 100%, if you can do that another year, and then another year, you'll be one of the richest people in the world, because people will throw their money at you to get 100% return, or even 10% return if you're managing that sort of money.
Well, you made an interesting point, because I think people go to trading thinking that's how you make money, but you mentioned, you could put it in the banks. There are ISAs or these bonds or whatever, and you could get even up to 5, 6, 7% in some, well, maybe not 7 now, but like, you could get that free money, like risk-free.
The Vanguard, the Vanguard S&P 500, the life strategy, that's done 7 to 10% per year for.
Exactly. There you go. Right. So that's free money.
Yeah.
So if you're risk averse,
Yeah.
stick it in there and then just put as much money as you can and you're guaranteed to make money.
Yeah.
There's no need to even think about trade, which is why I find it really interesting, because some risk averse people are like, I must trade, they get all anxious about it. And like you said, is you need to put a number on it, because actually you can make up to 10% return on your investment for free and literally sit on the beach drinking margs by doing that.
Exactly.
But why would they go into trading? So it has to be at least over that. You have to be thinking, well, obviously at least over that, because it's not very much money. But what are we looking at for average Joe who is in a job? Because I feel like what I don't think is sensible, people go, I'm going to quit my job and become a trader. Let's say the sensible approach, they're in a job and they want to do a separate income and they want to have extra revenue scheme, create a revenue plan. What are we looking at in terms of a safe kind of but you obviously have to invest your time to learn it as well. Like that's a big time investment. You said up to 100%. That's obviously
that's pretty good.
Pretty impressive, right? It's but the average person is probably not going to do that. Like, what are we looking at? You're hoping to see
30-40% per year.
Pretty decent, though.
Yeah, really good.
How many hours of work is required to get to that?
Yeah, and that will depend on how much time you've got. So the 18 to 25-year-olds, they've got all day, every day with no dependence, right? So they make a lot of progress really quickly, which is encouraging to them. So they make more progress, and then they're out the gate within 6 months. Whereas someone who's trying to learn and run a family and all that and got another job, they might only have a couple of hours a week to really put aside for it, which is going to take you 18 months. It really will.
So
the question is 18 months of that effort, betting on yourself, worth 20, 30, 40% per year. That's really it. And it is, I don't like to say numbers in terms of monetary value, because it's a percentage is different for everyone.
Exactly.
And it's all based on what you put in your account. But for me, my own approach was like, if I could get 30% per year, I had a figure in my head of how much and also you get this new confidence. When you prove to yourself that you can do it, you start finding money everywhere. It's like, well, I've now got the confidence to pull money out of here and put money in there, because why wouldn't I? It's like a fruit machine that every pound you put in, you get like 3 out. Yeah, it's like, I definitely want to put more in there. So you get this kind of new confidence that a lot of people don't really see or can't imagine that you would get at the moment, because they're like, oh, it's risky.
Yeah.
For me, trading is the least riskiest thing in the world, because it's just you. There's no staff.
Mm-hmm.
There's historical data of how every strategy's performed over the years and years. There's no variables. So it is just literally up to you to manage risk. And if you can manage risk, you become a good trader. And yeah, for me, I've got this confidence where I just find money. And
you've been doing it for years.
Yeah.
And the hours and endless hours of study. How do you still study?
Yeah.
Because you must have to keep up with it every day.
That's another misconception. You don't just pick a strategy and then it sail off into the sunset forever. It's constant refining and optimization. Every Christmas, I spend 40 hours just optimizing my strategies.
And what do you do? Talk me through your study plan of what you do. Well, not in detail necessarily if you don't want to get too much.
I don't care.
But you generally don't gatekeep anything, right? You put it online and say, head away. How do you refine your strategies? What sort of thing does it look like when you're...
So I take a look at my performance on that particular, whatever market I'm reviewing for that particular period, and I'll see where I've been right in my thesis, but not been involved in the trade. I'd also look at where I've left money on the table for where I've had my target. I'll look at how tight my stop loss was and whether I didn't give that enough breathing room. And all of these things, where I carried too much risk, where I didn't manage a trade correctly, where I was in trades that I shouldn't be in, where I was not in trades that I should be in, all of these things I analyze. And then I see how more aggressive I can become. The reason it takes so long is because if I can become more aggressive to the tune of 5% more aggressive, I won't go 5%, I'll go 1.5. And then next year I'll go 1.5. It's like the thermostat analogy, like you see people, oh, I'm cold, turn the heating on. And it's like, bang, it's like, oh, I'm hot, turn it off. Yeah. When in actual fact, you just tweak it 0.5 degree and you'll be comfortable. That's kind of how I approach my optimizations on my strategies.
Interesting.
So it's like a sustainable long-term comfort rather than volatile, because I can't handle, I wouldn't want to lose 10% of my account ever. I can't. I just wouldn't have the stomach for it. Whereas I know a trader, my friend Siam, he swings and swings, he's losing like 500,000 one day and then up the 1.5 and down 700, and I just can't do that.
And most people can't.
Most people can't.
Yeah.
No.
I think, again, like you said, that's why it has to be personal, because
Exactly.
I don't think most people could do that, and some people live for that and they get thrill from that, and they can manage that. If you've got a steady enough income, or like
the money doesn't matter.
Exactly, then it's like you've got bigger risk, bigger rewards, and all that sort of stuff. People like to do that, but that may not be for everyone, for sure.
It's for very few people, because anyone who I have met where they've got money, that money always matters. so anyone who's built any amount of sustainable wealth, every penny matters. So whatever portion they've got, they still wouldn't gamble it. They still wouldn't have volatile punts. It's still very much calculated. So very, very few people. Siam, I think, is probably a rarity.
And talk me through, I guess, what the average person can do to study trading, because obviously you've got your own things that you do, so your courses. What do you offer online? And your stuff is you've got one of your courses. I saw that, was it Introduction to
Trading for Dummies?
It's got 4 million views. 4 million views. That is actually insane, which is so crazy. But that just shows you how many people want to learn it, and they are fully willing to admit to themselves that they're beginners, not maybe to other people. But it shows you how many people are willing to do that. So is that the course to go watch, I guess?
Absolutely. Just the reason a lot of thought and effort went into creating that series, and the reason we called it Trading for Dummies was because you have to identify yourself as a dummy to click on that video, right? So first of all, we're getting people right at the scrape of the barrel, right? And then 2.5 hours into that video, you can then go, I trust this guy, or I don't trust this guy, or it's not for me, and you've got a lot of value and it's win-win. If you do like it, there's a part 2, which is another 2 hours, and then they can go and watch that. And then at the end of that, there's an option to do like a 30-day accelerator, which is very low cost. So the whole thing was created so that I could filter out the ones that actually want to do it and not get them burned and not have them spend thousands of pounds. The question I had in my head when I created that video was, how can I create a video where they won't need me after this? And that's why it's got 4 million views. I think it's just people have got so much value from that it did what we wanted it to do. And great, if you never ever have to work with me, that's amazing. But
yeah, it means you've done a great job on 4.5 hours of investment time, that is.
Yeah.
So watch those 2 videos, because they're completely free. They're on YouTube. Yeah. So I will definitely put the links in the show note, because it's a great start to anyone who wants to do it, because you're not selling anything. You're just completely giving away all these secrets or tips.
They're not even emails. You don't give an email. You just go on YouTube and watch it. Yeah.
But and like I said, 4 million people have watched it and left great reviews. So it's obviously good content in there. What then would be the next step? So how, where would you? Is there any particular platforms that you particularly recommend that you should go on? That's kind of good for the user experience and not intimidating. So I think that's what a lot of people say. It's the intimidation of all these stocks coming at you. So what would you recommend?
Yeah, I share everything in that video about all the platforms and everything. But what I would say is the reason a lot of people fail at not just trading but anything is they'll buy a course. And I remember one of my first talks at the London Trader Show, there's all these exhibitors that had paid $6,000 a day to be there to sell their courses, and I stood up on the main stage in the middle of all of these exhibitors. I hadn't paid to be there, and my talk was courses don't work, and the way that they looked at me, I could feel them burning their eyes in me. But the reason courses don't work is because, how many courses have I've bought? I've lost count, but you buy the thing, sits on the shelf development, and you don't log into it. There's no accountability, no direction of where. And the biggest thing is this thing called DDG, which is deletion, distortion, and generalization, which is basically what your brain does to make up stuff, to fill in gaps that you think is there. So like when you listen to a song or watch a film, if you watch a film, when you watch the film the second time, you'll see things that you didn't see. And the same and the same and the same. Because when you watch it the first time, your brain's just assuming and padding up gaps, going, oh, it must be this, it must be that, it's this, it's that, based on what you know to that point. And then when you watch it again, because that's all subconscious, it will show you new things. When you're watching a course, it's doing that. So you don't actually know that you've retained the right information, right? So that's a big reason that courses just don't work. So we created Tier 1 trading. And before we created Tier 1 trading, we went to this behavioral specialist and this data analyst at Brunel University and said, look, these are the problems that traders face. And it was like 6 things that needed underpinning. And he said it was accountability, a community, of like-minded people, courses with coaching and mentorship, a place to ask questions, and a method of learning where they had to write and then read back and then teach other people as well. So that really, really reinforces, I don't know if you've ever taught anything, but you really become better when you teach stuff.
You learn 80% of what you teach, apparently, is what it is.
Exactly that. Yeah, so all of those things are encouraged inside Tier 1. And because of that, we got a great strike rate of successful traders. So we then have this incentive to go and place traders at banks and at prop firms. And, we've had a great success rate doing that. So Tier 1 trading is the platform. It was in Forbes magazine we were recognized by Dr. Brett Steenberger, who's like the world's leading trading psychologist. And he interviewed me because of the innovation in that platform.
That's incredible.
Yeah, amazing.
I know what I wanted to ask you as well, because I feel like your videos have done so well. But you also not just talk about trading and some of them. You talk about just, I guess, like other things that you think people should know about and like, I guess some of the bullshit that's been out there and trying to correct some of that. I feel like there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of people out there who are giving advice who shouldn't be giving advice, like you were saying. How do you, what made you kind of go into other topics, and what makes you feel like, you're already an expert at trading, people trust you for that. What makes you kind of want to do these other topics and feel like you need to talk about those as well?
Great. When I was, that 18-month period that I mentioned where I was successfully trading at home, just getting fat, I tried to get out my house a lot, and that's when I started doing a lot of networking. I was spending a lot of time around really successful entrepreneurs, and I decided to do one accelerator program after the other, just to kind of be around these people. And they would always come up to me and ask me, they'd be fascinated with what I did. And I remember thinking, these guys have got such great businesses, why are they bothered about what I do? I just sit at home, trading. So I went to lunch with him and I said, why are they so bothered? And he said, the entrepreneurs are great at making money. They're not really great at managing their money. And what's attractive about you is you've got the free time to do whatever you want. Like, you're here on your own thing because you want to be here. They want the time. They want the choice to how they spend their day. That's what's attractive. And then after that, I started asking them questions about money. I just said, what do you do? What do you invest in? How much you make? What do you do with it? All that kind of stuff. And I started to realize that these entrepreneurs were great at making money, but had no money. And they were really bad at managing it. So I started to map out what I'd done from 22 years old to 29 years old, which was basically when I got to a position where I didn't need to work. And I started pitching it to them in a way that this process existed. And I was like, I'm thinking about creating this program about this and that, investing, managing your money, getting out of debt, all these kind of things, leveraging your lifestyle a little bit. And they were like, oh, that sounds amazing. And their eyes would light up. And I just started seeing, there's a bigger picture here. So on top of that, there was a lot of people going into trading without having any money or having ever earned any money. And a lot of people going into trading as the first port of call, when actually it was my last port of call. So I decided that I needed to bridge the gap and fill the whole space, and fill the whole strategy. So that's when I created the Tiers of Freedom program, which was like my entire life's work, basically from 22 to 29. And I sold it to all those entrepreneurs. It was like they were the big intake at the beginning of that program. It was sold to all these people earning like 350 grand a year.
That's mental.
And it went down really well. Loads of them have got tattoos now of the logo, which is really cool.
What?
Weird.
You've got like a bit of cult going on.
Yeah, really.
That's crazy.
Lifetime advertisement.
Yeah, I mean, oh my God, that's nuts. I think you've obviously got loads of respect of your people. So you got tattoos and basically a cult after you. And you've built this up from years of your reputation. But there are a lot of people out there who are just trying it. They're definite cowboys in this field. I would say that it's got to be 90% of people out there probably in this industry are cowboys. And how does someone differentiate and distinguish who's legit and who's not? Because that's got to be scary for someone who just wants to learn a bit of trading and they're just going to get ripped off.
I think firstly, you just look. So to me, it's really obvious, right? And I don't know if people don't see these signs because of an ego thing and they don't want to admit, they don't want to admit that, oh no, I'm being led down a garden path. But first thing I look at is testimonials. Like, just look at results that other people have got from listening to you, like real people. That's the first thing. Second thing is when you're listening to the person trying to pitch you, what are they selling? Are they selling the outcome, which obviously we were speaking about earlier, and not the process? Are they focused on their innovative education, or are they focused on a Lamborghini?
Yeah,
selling the if it's that, probably run a mile. How are they selling it? So are they pulling on heartstrings and saying, do you want to spend more time with your kids?
Oh, God.
All that kind of stuff. They're ridiculous.
They all do. Oh, wow.
You should, you don't want to grow up. I heard one say, you don't want to grow up where your kids hate you or remember how much time you spent at work and all that. Like, that's just toxic as hell, right? And then, if they're using that kind of tactic to sell it to you, then another red flag. But really, the most important thing for me is just what are they talking about? Are they telling you it's going to be difficult? Are they telling you the realistic expectations? Because if that's if that's the first encounter you're having where they're telling you this is bloody hard, these are the realistic expectations, it's going to take you ages, everything after that's probably going to be all right.
Yeah.
The more someone warns you off of trading, the more I'd trust them.
I think that's the same with everything there, and that's what I'm trying to say about no bullshit talks. But what I realised is that people don't want to hear this stuff as well. I think if you look at all the stuff that goes viral on social media, it's the things that sound nice. It sounds like a happy ending. It sounds easy. It's the fluff. People love that stuff, and no one wants to be told that actually this is really hard.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to work really hard. You can't just click your fingers or manifest success. That's what people want to hear. They want to hear an easy way out. So
I've had it with family members, right, where extended family members, because the people around you, closest to you, they don't want you to be their teacher, right? And they don't want to listen to you the most. That's why you grow up with people and they distance themselves when you have success, because they can't get in their head that they've had the same opportunity as you, but they haven't got the same results as you. So they definitely don't want to be seen learning from you, right? So I've had family, extended family, go out and try and learn to trade rather than just ask me or come under my wing. Yeah. And, and their opinion would be, oh yeah, your dad's saying it's really hard, or your husband say it's really, really hard. It doesn't have to be that hard. I'm learning from this guy who said it's going to be easier. They're still they've lost money. They've been bankrupt. They've lost, all the money, and I'm still doing all right. And it's sometimes you have to just swallow your pride a little bit and go down the route that you think's, okay, it looks harder, but at least I'm, in good hands.
I always think what in life is actually easy that's worth having. If you look at any successful person as well, you take any of the world's greatest at anything, Michael Jordan, for example, people talk about him and his success. He always say he would just shoot and just non-stop. How many hours a day you train? If you look at any of these, they're great documentaries now on Netflix, which show all the people and the stories behind it. Name one of those who got super lucky, who just sat there and had overnight success. None of them. It's all they get up at 3 a.m. and they train all day and they have no money and they're like broke and they're just like you're struggling and the family says, why don't you just go and get a job? It's all of that sort of stuff, but they have the real passion and they go for it and they study and they work hard. Not a single person has just been landed that. Like,
No.
not a true great has ever had that. And so I don't understand where people think that this is possible.
Yeah, I totally with you. And I think, I mean, one major one is like my relationship with my wife. I've been with my wife for 22 years or something. We've been married for like 15, and that is not an easy thing. It's like, it's constant growing at different speeds and, you know, understanding what they bring to the party and what you bring to the party and where they balance you out and things that frustrate you. And it's appreciating that because it's making you better in some way. All of that is like it's alien to most people, but it is hard work. And there is no dream relationship where you're going to go and meet like Prince Charming or whatever. It is just, the dream is having that appreciation and growing together. That's what a success is. It's not easy, but it's...
That's why, what's the stats now? 4 and 5 or something's going up and up because they do believe that.
Because now they're believing it should be better, and better and better.
Because other people are saying that and they're posting all their pictures on social media of the perfect lifestyle and all this stuff and exactly that, all that, and actually none of it's true. And I think people are believing all of it.
It's easier to say that than it is to go, actually, I do have to put in some work, right?
And admit where your flaws are.
Yes.
And that you've done things wrong and actually you're not always right. And, you know, and it's really hard. And all believing something's always better. Because I think that's what people do. Yeah. They think, I can do so much better. Yeah. Or, whatever. There's always something. And they don't realise how good they've got it. And I think that's the same, like I said, with relationships, with jobs, with entrepreneurship, with trading, with absolutely everything. And I think...
the bigger the fantasy, the bigger the downfall, like the bigger the disappointment is going to be for you.
It's kind of crazy. I feel like it is. And I think you've had so many great tips, but I kind of want to ask one more on because we talked about how you got that video of 4 million views, which is nuts, right? That is almost like probably every YouTuber's dream to go viral, as I say. Like, people are talking about viral. Yeah. But, you know, I've been on calls with you. You've got your little YouTube plaque behind you, which I think was one of the first things I said. I was like, because it is really impressive. People don't see it, necessarily think it's that impressive, but those who don't understand how much hard work goes into it. But I'd never
thought I'd get one of those.
Well, that's the other thing as well. Like, I guess you didn't go into it with that mindset of doing it, which probably made it a little bit easier in that sense. But now that you know you achieved it fairly and squarely, I'd love to get some tips from you for those who are, because I think YouTube's still a very attractive option to a lot of people, whether they want to become full-time content creators or whether they are just business owners who want a platform to be able to invest in. And it's a lot of time and money investment to do stuff on YouTube. And as we talked about earlier, it's got to be for the right reasons. But I'd love to have some practical tips for just video, for growing YouTube, and I guess what people can be doing to kind of maybe get a plaque someday.
Yeah. When I look back at all of my stats and everything, because I'm a stat geek, so I do track all of that stuff and look at the trends. And really what's most important is the value that you're going to share. So people think of YouTube as a how-to, it is just a video version of Google. And that's really what most people are using it for. Unless you're running, there's 3 categories, it's basically education, entertainment, or motivation. Motivation is going to be really, really tiring to keep that up sustainably, to do motivational videos, in my opinion, because you're, again, expressing one side and not showing the other side, and that is going to burn you out. Entertainment, that's, again, great, but there's a lot of pressure there to be an entertainer. Education, we've all got something we can share, and I think if you think about what that person's typing into Google, try and answer that question as thoroughly as possible. And the more thoroughly you answer it, the more trust they'll build with you, and the higher that'll rank on YouTube, because all YouTube care about is people watching as much of that video as possible and, liking it and making sure that it's positive. So that 4 million has got a 99% score on YouTube, which is crazy for that amount.
Especially for that industry.
And that length of video, it's crazy. So that that's one thing, the value, delivering on the question that they might be typing into Google. And then the second thing is getting them to click it. So that is where you're going to have some creative energy around a thumbnail and a title. And believe it or not, that video that we did there that got 4 million views, that was the only video where I created the thumbnail 6 months before I even created the video.
But that's what I've been told as the big tip, is that you've got to create thumbnail and your title before you create the video, because you need to create the video with that in mind of how to rank that. And that's been, I think, most people's number one tip, actually. So that's really interesting that you kind of learned that accidentally, and it proves the point, right?
Yeah, I haven't heard anyone else say that.
That's what I've been asking loads of people recently about YouTube tips, since I'm now going to be new on YouTube. That that's one of the things people say. So craft your titles and your thumbnails before you even shoot the video.
Yeah. So I was sitting in my office one day, and I've got a collection of those For Dummies books over the years. And I thought that's really, everyone recognizes that. Yep. Everyone likes buying those books because it's the starting point, right? That's what I've always felt anyway. And I created a really clean thumbnail, cheekily used the logo and crossed it out a little bit and put beginners, and then I just sat on it for 6 months, and I thought, what would a beginner love to see? And I read a couple of those beginner books, trying to pull out as many tidbits as possible. And then we mapped out the video, and it was, paid off. But it didn't pay off straight away. It took we launched that video in January, and it took till June till it received about 10,000 views, which is pretty good to June. But then in June, something happened. And I think that's when YouTube started favoring the video. And that's when it was going up 600 subs a day and, thousands of views per day. It went up to 70,000 views in June. And then it was just...
What happened, do you think?
I think the sample size of 5 or 6 months of people liking it, YouTube understanding that people are getting what they come to the video for, and then just ranking it and boosting it and helping me out a bit. And
what did you do to help promote it?
Nothing.
It just sat there.
Since then, since last May, it's got it started at 500 subs per day, and it stayed at that since May. So I've got 500 subs a day, and it hasn't dipped or gone down. Or it's mad, absolutely crazy.
That's insane.
I did learn that the way Google works is how they favor it. Google's job is you go onto Google and you find what you look for, and you click away from their website. And if you go back to their website, they've failed their job. So they want you to type a question and never come back. That's when they've nailed the whatever it is you're looking for, right? Yeah. So the same in YouTube. If someone types that into YouTube, then they watch my video and don't type that in again, that means that they've found what they're looking for, and that's how they rank your video, right? So if you can answer the questions in your video, then you're halfway there.
I think you basically summarize point of SEO, right? And as obviously one of the things that we do, and I try to explain that to people, but people are so bothered about algorithm and all this nonsense. I was like, just think, what is Google's job? Put yourself in Google's position. Their job as a search engine is to provide you with the best quality results. What are they going to rank as the best quality results? It's the ones that actually answer the question. So like you said, if people don't understand that bounce rate and all this sort of stuff, but that's exactly it. If they come on the site and they click off it, then you obviously haven't answered the question properly. Yeah. And people forget that YouTube is part of Google. Yeah. And it's the same thing, like you said earlier, it's a video version of Google. So they're going to come in, and if they're going to watch your video, then they announce and stay on it. That means they've answered the question. Now, that leads on to a question I feel like a lot of people have been discussing in the video world. And that's long form versus short form content. And obviously that video is 2.5 hours long. But you've just mentioned that actually if they answer that you stay on that video for 2.5 hours, you've definitely answered that question. Do you think that there's more longevity in long form content then, do you think? I know there's obviously TikTok and all that stuff, the shorts, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think retention rate is a big one, and that is the percentage of the video that they watch, to get the answer. But I also think that time's valuable, and I think people will favor your video if they get the result they're looking for, whether that's in 5 minutes or 2 hours. I hate to be crude, but prostitution's one of the oldest professions for that exact reason. You're paid on result.
Oh my God, that's true.
Right? So,
you compare YouTube to prostitution.
Yeah, right. Someone said that to me the other day, and I was like taken aback by it. But it's kind of the same thing. It's like, how quickly can you get the result for the person and get them to favour your video, right?
I've got all sorts of thoughts in my head right now.
With the algorithm thing, though, I think like everyone's obsessed with the algorithm. Just replace the word algorithm for audience, and just like, how can I give the audience? How can I boost the audience? How can I give the audience more? And yeah, I think the algorithm, like your video doing well and your channel doing well, is like that much how you hack the algorithm, and that much your content being good.
Yeah.
Like that's it, really. So just focus on the content being good, and the algorithm will just work.
And that's exactly what we're talking about again in terms of process and versus results oriented.
Yeah.
Same sort of mindset, same thing again. Like if you're doing it for the right reasons and you're trying to do value for the person and actually helping people, then you'll get paid dividends later. Like you said about your video suddenly started picking up. Something happened in June, but the algorithm decided actually you are creating value for all the people who come visiting it, and they rewarded you.
And you don't have to worry about all the time of day that your audience online, because it's YouTube's job to show the right people the right videos, right? So just do a good video and YouTube will sort out the rest. Or TikTok or any of these platforms, their job is to show you the right videos to the right people. So don't worry about time of day or anything like that. Just produce a good video. That's like the number one.
I love it. The advice is so good. And I guess I've just got one last question, because I like to ask everyone like about predictions, like for your industry, which is obviously trading and I guess education around it. But what are your predictions for the next 12 months or what you see in the industry? Do you think it's going to get worse with scammers? Do you think that people are going to actually take trading a little bit more seriously and more respect to it? Like, how do you see it? Where do you see it go?
I think, I definitely think anyone who jumped on the kind of get rich quick, teach people to trade thing, as I say, that's not sustainable for anyone, because they will eventually burn out. They're not being authentic to themselves, and I think there's a guilt that creeps into those people that they can't quite handle, and then they just give up. They disappear overnight. Second of all, I think over lockdown and all that period where everyone got this kind of influx of, believe it or not, everyone got money in lockdown. They were getting all these furlough checks, all this stuff. They dumped it all into trading because they were bored at home. And, I think they got humbled. And I think there was a big learning curve over the last few years. And the fact that people talk about trading as scammy, like you're now saying it's a scammy thing. Yeah, it is a scammy thing, but people never used to talk about it that way. It was like, oh yeah, trading, it's amazing. So great, it's more awareness created, plus the FCA locking down, clamping down and all that. So I think we're going in the right direction, and I think the internet's a great place to scam people, but it's also a great place to get the right information out. And I think, sooner or later, I'll just keep doing what I'm doing, and hopefully there's a few more people like that, and we'll just annihilate the scams.
Oh.
I hope.
Yeah, I hope so, because that's what I plan to do in entrepreneurship, same sort of thing, and we'll get there.
Yeah. The Avengers.
Yeah. But it's been an absolute pleasure having you on today. It's been such a good conversation and so much valuable stuff in there, so thank you so much.
It's flown by, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.